Hi, I'm Danielle Bassoni with Time for Change Kitchen. Today we are going to make my vegan barbecue sauce, which in my opinion is the best barbecue sauce in the world. You may disagree, but I don't think so. And we're going to use our Instant Pot. This is a fairly new contraption. It's only been around for a couple of years, I think, but it's a very handy tool to have in the kitchen. I use mine almost every day, and if not for cooking the entire meal, certainly for cooking part of the meal. It makes dinners go much faster. And I'm also using an extra piece that I bought to go with my Instant Pot. It comes with a stainless steel liner, and this is a ceramic liner that I purchased separately because it's very useful when you're working with nuts or anything that tends to want to stick to the pan. This helps prevent that from happening. Okay, so let's get started. I do want to mention one of the things I really like about this pot is, and I didn't even discover this till I had had mine for several weeks, but there's a handle, a slot where you can put your handle, and it's very convenient because you don't have to have a place on the countertop to rest your pot when your lid when you're not using it. And it also has a left-handed handle, so either way it's fine. So I think I'll leave it in the left-handed slot because I'm right-handed and I want to work here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is put it on the saute mode. And this is normal, sauteing normal. The temperature is on normal. And it automatically goes to 30 minutes. And now we're going to saute the vegetables that are going into the barbecue sauce. The first that we have is a large onion that's been coarsely chopped. There's no reason to mince anything in this recipe because everything's going into a blender. And this is about 3 cups of one large onion. It can be a red onion or a white onion, it doesn't matter. And to that, we're adding about 2 stalks of celery. This is a half a cup. 1 medium bell pepper, and this is about 3/4 of a cup. 3 cloves of garlic that had previously been smashed. And we'll add this last. This has already been cooked. This is roasted red pepper. And so we'll keep an eye on this and keep stirring it. We do not want it necessarily caramelized, but what we do want is a nice translucency to it. And I'm going to move this to the side, and while this is sautéing, I'm going to put our spice blend together. And I'm switching this over so I can keep an eye on it. So normally what I do with our spice blend is I usually just take it out of the spice container and put it directly into a bowl, and you just put all your spices together. But I wanted to show you separately which spices we use. I know this seems like a lot of spices, but it's really not a big deal. We're using 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric is a very healthy spice, and but in order for you to get the health benefits of turmeric, you also have to add black pepper. And so this is a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now this is cayenne pepper, and this is a personal choice. Let me check this for a moment. I do not want this to burn. Oh, it's starting to smell nice already. Yum. Okay. So this is cayenne pepper. I use a 1/2 teaspoon because I really like a bit of kick to my spice. You may want to start with 1/4 teaspoon, and if you don't like any spice at all, just don't add it. But you can always add more. You can't take it out. So I know that I like a 1/2 teaspoon, so I'm going to put it in here. Here's a teaspoon of cinnamon, I prefer Ceylon cinnamon because it's not toxic to your liver as other cinnamons can be. And then I have a tablespoon of garlic granules and a tablespoon, and this is the secret ingredient, this is cocoa powder. So that's ready to go after we finish this. After we finish sauteing this, I'll show you what else to do. And keep this stirring so that it doesn't scorch. And if you don't have one of these ceramic inserts, it's perfectly fine to use the stainless steel insert. You may want to add a little water if it starts to scorch in the stainless steel, just a tablespoon at a time, just to make sure that this doesn't burn. Because we're not using oil. It's just not necessary to contaminate our bodies with oil. Smells good. Okay, so this has been sauteing for about 6 minutes now, and you can see that the onions are becoming rather translucent. I need a little more time with the bell peppers, and the celery is doing very well. It's also becoming fairly translucent, but we'll give it a couple of more minutes. And I'm also going to add a little bit of water, just a touch, because it's trying to stick. And we'll just move that around. In the beginning, and you can see I'm getting a little caramelization on the bottom of the pan, and I'm going to drop a little bit of water on that too, because that'll pull up the caramelization, and it'll pull it onto the vegetables. And I'll do a demonstration soon on how to caramelize vegetables, because without oil, because you can do everything without oil that you can do with oil. You just have to know the techniques. This is becoming quite nice. And one of the things that I want to mention is this isn't a Cajun dish, but just for your information, bell peppers, onion, and celery in Cajun cooking is called the Holy Trinity of Cajun cooking, and it's in many, many of their dishes. I'm going to put a little more water. You put just enough to keep it from sticking. When you're caramelizing, it's particularly important because you don't want the vegetables to steam, but in this case, it's really okay if they steam. Although I really haven't used much at all. You can see how it's bubbling up and pulling up the caramelization from the vegetables. You wait until it's almost cooked off, and then you pull your vegetables on top of it, and that transfers the caramelization onto your vegetables without steaming them. Okay, so this is pretty good. I think this is ready to go. And so I'm going to take this now and turn it off. And I'm going to transfer this. And these are little mitts that I bought that are actually made to go with this. And it's useful because when you're using like a cloth, it can get hung up on this and cause you to have problems. And this works very well to take this off and set it aside. So I'm just going to set this out of the way in a moment. And I'm setting this pot to the side to cool because it's going to go in my blender, and I do not like to put hot ingredients into my blender. I'm also going to add these roasted red peppers, which, like I said, have been roasted, so they're already cooked. And that was 1 medium roasted red pepper, which is about a half a cup. And this is a tablespoon of orange zest. And I'm going to add that now too. And now all of this is going to go to our blender, into our blender in a bit. And now we are going to work with our blender with some other some other ingredients as well. Okay, we're going on to step 2 of the barbecue sauce video. The first thing we're going to do is blend some of these ingredients. We have, I use a Vitamix blender, which is a high-powered blender, and it holds a lot of ingredients. I think this holds 2 liters. And so you can use a regular blender, that's fine for this recipe, but you may have to do it in 2 batches. So the first thing that we're going to do is combine some of these ingredients, and this is 16 ounces of chopped tomatoes. This, I believe, is roasted tomatoes that I put up. I prefer to use my own roasted tomatoes rather than canned store-bought. If I can avoid it, I don't use anything that comes in a can. But it's perfectly fine. And you can use a 14.5 can of tomatoes. And if I use canned tomatoes, I use Muir Glen. This is crushed fire roasted tomatoes. And this is more than you need for this recipe. It calls for 14.5 ounces, and because my container is 16 ounces, that's what I'm going to use, and that's fine. And also, it calls for 6 ounces of tomato paste. I also make my own tomato paste, and I'm going to do a video very soon showing you how to can your own tomatoes. They're wonderful when you can get them at a good price, when they're in season and readily available, and then you know what's in your food. Now this is not, as you can see, as thick as commercial canned tomato paste, but I actually prefer it this way. This is more like the consistency of ketchup, and I cooked this down for quite a long time to achieve this. And this is 4 ounces, and because it's not concentrated, I'm going to use 2 of these. But I find this very handy. And there's nothing like canning your own tomatoes. The only thing better is using fresh tomatoes, which are not always available. Again, they're only available during the end of the summer. And this is not hard to do. I spend 2 weekends a month, 2 weekends in the summer, actually just 2 days in the summer, maybe 3 days, canning all the tomatoes I need for the year. And to me, that's a sacrifice worth making. Okay, so we have 14.5 ounces of commercial tomatoes and 6 ounces of tomato paste. And now we're going to add a half a cup of I use organic molasses. One thing I want to mention too is with my peppers, even my dried peppers like cayenne and bell peppers, I always use organic because they're very high in pesticide residue, and I do not want to be feeding that to my family. Okay, so that's a half a cup of organic molasses, a third of a cup of organic brown sugar. This dish will be a little sweet and a little spicy, but not overly of either one. And a third of a cup of apple cider vinegar, and again, that's organic. Okay, that should do the trick. And now I'm going to blend this in my Vitamix, and everything's off, okay. So whenever I use a high-powered blender or any loud kitchen machine, I always wear earplugs because it protects your ears. and once you lose your hearing, it's gone. So it's a good idea to protect it. Okay, so I'm gonna doing this backwards gets a little bit confusing. Okay, we blended that, and now we're going to add our spices. I'm going to set this here for a moment. So we just dump all of our spices in. And now our vegetables are cool enough that we can add that. You actually can add your vegetables in here hot if you want to. I just don't like to put hot things in my blenders. Even though it's, you know, supposed to handle it just fine, and it does. You can actually cook soup in this blender. But I don't like to do that. And my reasoning is just my suspicion over plastics of any kind. No matter how safe they say they are, I don't quite trust that. Before I start this, I want to mention that if you like your barbecue sauce with more texture, just blend it a little less. I like mine quite smooth, so I blend this very much, a great deal. Okay, this is smooth enough to suit me. You can look at the wand, and that shows you how smooth it is. And so we're going to scrape that off a little bit. Okay. And now we're going to transfer this back to the Instant Pot. One way to get your most of your ingredients at least away from the blending element, your blades, is to give it a good shake, and then the rest of it just scrapes right out. Okay, so we've transferred our ingredients to the Instant Pot. This is our sauce, and you can see it looks like barbecue sauce. But we're going to cook it for just a little bit and have all these flavors come together. It smells wonderful. Now, this is a bad habit, and I've mentioned this in several videos, and I can't seem to break myself of it. The way you do this is hit it against your hand, and then you don't end up damaging your pots. It's especially important if you're using a metal spoon. Metal on metal will cause dents, and that can ruin your Instant Pot. Okay, so we are going to put this on manual, and I have it set to 0 minutes. And we're going to set this is the sealing ring, the sealing piece of equipment. What is this thing called? The pressure sealer. This is the pressure sealer. If you wanted to leave it unvented, you would put it, or vented, you would put it here. This is unvented and sealed. And so now this is coming to temperature. And once it has, you've heard that little beep go off, it's coming to temperature. And once this comes to temperature, it will automatically shut off, because I do not want it cooking for any more than the time it takes to bring the pressure up, because then it's done. There's no point in cooking it any farther. Okay, and then we'll release the pressure and it's finished. That's how easy this is. Okay, so this has come to temperature. You can see that this has risen to the top. And so it has come to temperature, and since this was 0 minutes, it should be telling us that it's done in just a minute. One of the things that I am embarrassed to say I forgot to add to this is a tablespoon of Southwest chili powder. And I really don't know what else you call it. It's the same chili powder you use. It's a chili blend that you use when you're making chili. And it has paprika and garlic and onion and other different spices depending on who's making it. But I put a tablespoon of this in, and since I forgot to do it, we are going to add it in once I release the pressure of this, and while it's still hot, and it should be just fine. Okay, you can hear that it's beeping. It probably took another minute once it reached pressure to start beeping. And it will automatically go to warm, and I'm going to turn it off. I do want to show you about this venting mechanism. A lot of people are scared of this thing because it just shoots out steam, and you don't want to be right over it when that happens. You want to be away from it. And a lot of people will take your a spoon like this and turn it, and that's fine. But it's also easy just to do it with your thumb. Just don't get in front of it, and it's fine. So we'll release the pressure, and then I'm going to add back this southwestern chili powder, and this is done. Okay, when this drops down, now you can open this. So I'm going to set this over to the left side. You can see how nice this is bubbling. And this is done, but we're also going to add in this southwestern chili powder that I neglected to add in the beginning. Use this. So this is perfect. Now, if this is too runny for you, this is just the way I like it. But if it's too runny for you, you can just continue to put it on Sauté and cook it down a little bit more. But this is just the way I like it. And this, like I said, is a great substitute for ketchup. And it's very healthy. And it's wonderful on barbecued pulled pork that I make with jackfruit. And we'll be doing a video of that quite soon. This makes about 5 to 5.5 cups, and it freezes very well. You can put them in 1 cup or 2 cup Pyrex containers and put them in your freezer and just pull it out whenever you need it. It makes it very convenient to have this on hand, or you can have it in your refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. Okay, now you know how to make the best barbecue sauce in the world.